welcome to I guess what we're calling Marketing Corner.
Yes,
With
marketing
Casper
corner.
and Jen. Yay!
Yeah.
Welcome to Marketing Corner. I don't know about you, but I've been trying my hellos a lot, and I haven't nailed it yet.
No, but you're
Hello.
definitely your introduction voice is way better than mine. So
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
I'm
So
flattered.
so I think we're
Well,
sticking with that
welcome.
one.
Where Jen and Casper talk about marketing. And today, Casper, what are we going to talk about?
Yeah, we're gonna talk about a topic near to my heart: lead ads versus branding. Everyone keeps talking about should you do lead ads, should you do branding, and or should you do both, or what you should do. And I think there's a lot of different opinions on this, and I'm not sure we have the correct answers, but we definitely have some opinions. So
We have lots of those. Yeah.
yeah, lots of those. So can you just maybe just recap very briefly, if you're in like, okay, if you're listening to this episode, you probably know what a lead ad or branding is, but in case you don't, then Jen, what is a lead ad?
Lead ad, I guess it depends on your own definition. My definition of a lead ad is a lead generation ad where someone fills out a form and gives you their details, and they want to learn more about your product. And that will go, sometimes we'll call that an MQL, a marketing qualified lead, where someone actively wants to learn more about your product. And then that's something that we would pass on to sales. How about you?
No, I would say the same. And that's the technical definition, right? And like I think in a broader terms, it's more like it's the approach of working towards getting people to sign up to try your product. Like
Exactly.
it's not you're not talking about the whole company. Maybe you're talking about, hey, I want you to try the product. It's
Yep.
very it's, if you look at it in the funnel perspective, I always try to explain it as like it's very down the funnel. It's very close to the people who are trying to buy your product. Those are the ones you try to target with lead ads or with lead generation, right? Or you
Absolutely.
hope to catch the most of, at least.
The kind of higher intent, the people who are ready to go, as opposed to, we also have leads where people sign up for a webinar. Not the same in
Yeah,
my
exactly.
world.
No, exactly.
That's not an MQL.
No, exactly. I think we get to that in a sec.
Cool.
Then what about so branding? Everyone knows branding. What's your definition of branding in Dixa, or like in general?
It's more upper funnel activities. So again, webinars, content that you put out into the world, maybe events that you host. So it's kind of getting your name out there, employer branding, product branding. What do people associate when they hear your name, your company name, as opposed to lower down the funnel when they're ready to buy something.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think like branding for me also encapsulates everything. Like it's just like almost everything you do, you can always take, we're kind of doing branding, but which is also a benefit, but also definitely a drawback of branding in general. I think it's like in always talk with some other marketeers as well, and I think you and I share the same. It's like sometimes it's a little bit of a, in Danish we'll call it a fyr. It's more like be like you're not really happy to admit you're doing branding, because it's like, oh, I'm doing this branding thing. It's like
it's a bit really airy fairy kind of.
It's a bit fluffy, right?
Yeah, fluffy. Yeah.
So,
but it's crucial, and I go between demand generation and lead generation. I don't know if this maybe is just me, but I feel like everything you do is a demand generation. Yeah. So even if you do an article as to top 10 reasons you should change softwares, even if you don't specifically mention it, you're kind of creating that demand. You're creating that like, oh, I should learn more about this. Lead generation is, your lower funnel, your Google ads and stuff, your review sites, which you talked about in the last episode.
Yeah. And I think this brings me to one of the first things that I bring up is that so there was a study conducted by two guys called Les Binet and Peter Field, and it's a pretty well-known study. So go look it up if you haven't seen it. Essentially, what it looks into is the difference between focus on what they call it sales activation versus branding. And I think the big question that always pops into every marketeer's head and every manager of a marketeer is, how do you divide between the efforts? Some of it overlaps. There will always be overlapping, but do you do 80-20? I think that's the case for many companies, like including myself. I've been a lot of an 80-20 man, where 80% lead generation, 20% branding. But what they're actually proposing in their study, and here we talk, you should go read the study if you want to catch the whole thing, but if you're interested in just the B2B side of it, they actually recommend that you do around 54% 54, funny number, but 54% activation, so lead gen, and then 46% branding, which is quite different from the 80-20 I was just talking about. So have you ever done that much branding in any company, Jen?
Well, I've always had lead gen as my main focus until recently in my new role. So I was always very heavily focused on the lead gen side. But what I had seen when I did experiments is when we turned down branding, the lead gen side went down as well. So there was an immediate correlation between, let's say, not pushing as much content out, not spending as much, maybe boosting blog posts and things like that. There was an immediate correlation between shutting that off and the amount of leads coming through and the quality of leads coming through. Because that's something else that branding is going to do for you, is going to educate that audience into what you actually do. And that's really important for B2B. We're not selling shoes or handbags or anything like that. We only want certain people, right, becoming leads.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
So branding is pushed through the funnel, people who are the right kind of leads. Now in my new role, yes, I see branding a lot more because I'm overseeing all marketing initiatives.
Yeah, and I think you bring a good point in saying like I think the problem that's always been, like, at least for me, and I think it sounds like you've had exactly the same problem, is like the problem is not that I don't believe in branding. Like I grew up with two parents who, my dad wrote books about branding. Like my mom worked at a marketing agency. She was all about branding. So, and I definitely, but the problem is in today's world, it's hard to prove. Like you can, like you're trying to prove it here by saying there's a correlation between if you turn it down and then something happens, right? And we could see too. I remember at Templafy, it was like we did initiatives and suddenly we have a lot of direct traffic. Like, okay, we would have a lot of branded searches, people searching for a brand. Where are they coming from? They're not happening on their own, right? So
exactly.
So there's the issue with branding for me has always been like, I could prove that something else was working really well, then why take the risk of doing something I can't prove but I think might work as well?
Well, you bring up a really great point. I mean, the lead gen side of my brain, and what a lot, I think, of people's managers out there who are listening, they say, show us a return on investment. You spent X amount on these different channels. Which one drove the most business? And in a lot of cases, from where I've worked in the past, it's Google Ads. Great, then double down on Google Ads. But look further. What's the next level? Well, actually, it's branded searches that are driving the most business. And no one just comes up with the name Dixa or the name Planday or anywhere I've ever worked. No one just randomly searches for that. There's something they've seen somewhere that made them want to search for that. And so I think the problem is I don't know what. And that's where you have this problem of, turn up what works, right? I get told that a lot. Turn up what works, turn down what doesn't work. And the problem is, if you look on the face of it, yeah, maybe I don't have a ton of people visiting that ebook, but they've seen something somewhere. I don't have a lot of people coming through Facebook, but when I turn Facebook down, I see people Googling us less. So yeah, there's that danger of pointing to something, and a lot of management, and this is because they have different objectives. They're looking at ROI, they're looking black and white. This is where you're spending too much money on this and I don't see a return. But in marketing, everything is interconnected. And that's the danger, I think, when you rely too much on data, is you make it too black and white. And then you could risk, like you said, tinkering with something that maybe doesn't need tinkering, or turning something off that is actually working.
No, I think you're exactly right. And one thing I also thought about, and this is they also bring that up in this study here by Binet and Field, is that this really resonates with me, that branding, if you look at it, is a compounding effect. Where like, if you think about it, like if you do some like let's say we do lead ads right now, and let's say for the fun sake of it, that we're a little bit bad maybe at doing the follow-up, which is another point we get to, then it only lasts for a certain amount of time. Let's say you're doing a campaign that only lasts November, and you're going for the people who are ready to buy. You're not building the people who are going to buy your product in 6 months or in 12 months. You're going for the people who are ready to buy your product right now. So I think,
and then they buy it, and that's it.
That's exactly right.
They're not going to be return customers. They're not going to buy from you again if you're B2B. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that's why you also need a mix of it. I think it's a great point, is that you need someone to pick up that steam that you're creating. So the branding is creating the steam, but your lead generation needs to pick that up. Like if you're not picking it up, then, like, I don't know what you're doing. And I think, but this like whole idea of compounding effect, I think that's really powerful. If you suddenly create something where, because both for Dixa and Templafy, where I used to work, and Compliant, where I work today, it's more like these are not like your day-to-day decisions, right? Like it's not like you start the day out and say like, now I want to buy a template management system, or I want to buy a compliance management system, or whatever, right? Like that's a process. It takes sometimes it takes a year for them to decide. So it's all about timing. So you gotta be present in their mind. And if you haven't done anything to stay present, but only like, and that's why lead gen works, because sometimes you get them right when when they're thinking about it. But other times when it's not working, that's because they're not really considering it.
And I think that's you bring up a really good point. I mean, again, we're not selling consumer goods. We're not selling shoes, and someone's like, "Oh, those are nice. I'll buy those." Yeah. This is a long process. I mean, we have anywhere I've worked, it's been between 3 to 18 months, depending on the size of the client. Sales cycle. That's a long time, and they're not just going to look at my Facebook lead gen ad and go, "Yeah, cool, all right, done." No, they're going to Google the hell out of you, right? They're going to be checking you out on all your platforms. They're going to be looking at you on review sites, which is why it's important to be present, which listen to the previous episode.
Listen to the first episode.
But,
very smooth, Jen, very smooth, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. But, and their average, B2B needs 8 to 12 different touch points. So yeah, it's all good to have this lead gen and to be active in the lower funnel. But if they Google you and you don't exist anywhere else, or, they can't find anything that kind of that social proof, or anyone else who's talking about you, then you're going to lose weight. And I can't remember the statistics. I wish I had come with this, but they did I think it was Harvard Business Review did a study that said if you have better social proof, 72% of consumers are more likely to pay more for your product than if you don't, because not only are you going to go for the best price and what fits you, but if you're neck and neck with someone else, but you have this other stuff, you have a presence, you have a brand, people are willing to pay more for that because they feel more secure.
Yeah, exactly. I think one thing that's really important to talk about as well, and then maybe we can move into that as well, that kind of goes with this, is that when is the right approach to start thinking about this? And I have had multiple. So actually, I had a discussion with a guy called Mr. Lombardo from LinkedIn, hashtag Mr. Lombardo. But he's like he's one of the head strategists of like LinkedIn. I can't remember his official title. Anyways, he talks a lot about this study and a lot about brand building. One thing where I remember fundamentally disagreeing a little bit is that at what point of your of your company journey should you be focusing on either? I think like in the case of Compliant, we're 14 people. We can't afford to do a full, like, let's say 80-20 where we focus on branding. If we're doing only branding activities right now, we would go out of business very, very fast. Because like, while I want to build brand for the next year or two, it's gonna take a year or two, but I need to like make a customer before that. So I think there's like, I don't know what your viewpoint on this is, but definitely I think there's a difference. For me, you shouldn't talk about this branding as a discipline, if that makes sense, before you're at least like 50 people and have some proven traction. I don't know what you think about this.
I might disagree with you for the first time in our couple of year relationship here.
That's fine.
But I hear what you're saying. I completely understand what you're saying, but I think it's a chicken and egg, isn't it? Because if people have never heard of you, why are they going to Google you? Why are they going to click on your ad? So I think, for my team, for example, I have a very lean team, I would say, where my team is 80% branding and 20% lower funnel. And that is a number of factors, including Corona and maternity leave and things like that. That wasn't, that's not what we're going for. It's a situation we're in. But actually, because I have this content machine pumping away and getting all this really great stuff out, and the people are coming naturally. So I can, as one woman army in the lower funnel, I can kind of maintain these ads a little bit because I have so many people coming through because they're seeing us elsewhere. Now, in my ideal team, I would have equal number of people, and that's what we're striving for. But if you're not making a name for yourself, no one's going to find you. And so when I get asked by people, sorry.
But if we talk about like, if we take I really like your point. So if we take a step back and say like, So 80% of your team is focused on brand, let's say, focus on brand activities, and 20% on lead generation. But does that also reflect in the spend levels? Like when you spend exactly? And I don't think
No.
that's the case, right?
Yeah, sorry. And in terms of resources, yes, but in terms of spend, we're willing to pay a lot more for a lead than a click.
Yes.
So yeah, so we do invest much heavily in leads at the bottom funnel. Yes,
Yeah.
but not necessarily in resources, but in finances. Yes.
Exactly, and I think that brings up maybe my point of it is that it's like a very fine-tuned balance. Like you have to
Mhm.
find a balance that works for you, but you can't disregard the other. I think in the
Absolutely.
past I've been a little bit maybe too. I've easily neglected the value of doing branding, also personal branding, which is a different topic for a different day, but but an employee branding as well. But I definitely think you need to have a mixture of both, which is also there. Like the study kind of correlates a little bit with what I've been feeling lately.
Mhm.
I've been seeing in the market that that's just like it's not enough to just do lead ads anymore and just only do that. Which brings me
Absolutely.
to a point I want to bring up to you. So, what do you think is like if you had to say one thing that people don't do when they do lead ads that they definitely should be doing, what would that be? I think it's a leading question, but
Ooh,
there we go.
yeah. Ooh, oh. Well, in terms of lead ads, yes, I think you have to. What happens after they become a lead?
Oh, thank God. Okay.
I read your mind.
Yeah.
No, I think it's so true because it's yeah. I mean, you can pay $200 for a lead, and then if nothing happens with them and they get cold, you just wasted that money. And they give you their name and their email and their phone number and their company name or whatever other fields you ask for if they're not ready to go. And
Mm,
so if you don't do anything or you make the process so complicated that they just lose interest,
mm,
that's where, yeah, that's kind of the next level. Lead gen is what happens when that person comes in and says, yes, I want a demo. I saw a talk once where someone called it, they were talking about planet marketing and planet sales. And they called marketing's approach the NMFP process, which was not my fucking problem. So it was kind of once that lead comes in, marketing go,
yeah.
not my fucking problem. Sales go in it, and sales will turn around and say this was a shit lead or they weren't ready. But it's that kind of like we're done with them now, on to the next. And I think
Mm,
that's dangerous, and you need to simplify that process to make it easy for the consumer, not for yourself. Don't make the consumer fit into your organizational chart.
yeah.
You have
I
to
I
smooth
100%
out.
agree, and I've seen it so many times. Like, and like it's a maybe this is a topic for a different day, but like I think going into like marketing should definitely be owning the whole process. Like that's always something I always talk about, at least as you also brought up here, is that you gotta be able to say, I brought in this lead, but I'm also following up if anything's happening to him. Like, are you
Mhm,
people talking to him? Are we sending him the correct emails and stuff? If you
mhm,
don't do follow up on your lead ads or any activities in general, you're missing out. Like, you're
mhm.
losing so much on the floor. A cool story where, without mentioning any names, let's just call them a really big company. Uh, I heard some inside stories from some of the channels, LinkedIn and Facebook and stuff, and I think this is a LinkedIn case where this big company would had done a campaign, lead ad campaign, collecting information. I can't remember, email and content information, right? And then
Mhm.
I think they collected close to something like 5,000 submissions. So we're talking serious buck here. And they didn't do anything to these guys, to these people, for the first 2 or 3 months, I think. And then after 2 or 3 months, marketing would go like, here you go, sales. Here's 5,000 leads. How well did you think that go? That went.
Did my sound come through? I
Yeah.
mean, what is it? Basically, every hour that goes by, they get colder and colder.
Exactly.
We had the setup. Actually, we had a really sweet setup at Plan Day where if someone was in the right sort of demographic in terms of we looked at company size and vertical. If they came into that sweet spot, they were called in 7 minutes
Okay.
from the moment they filled out that lead gen form to the moment, because and even then people are like, I never signed up for this, and you're
Yeah.
like, you just did it,
7 minutes ago.
7 minutes ago, and they're like, so that's and if 5 months, 4 months, like, come on, man.
I
If
don't
they're
even.
doing it for you, they're doing it for everyone else, and the first person to get in there is gonna have a better chance.
it hurts me to my gut, right? Like it's gut wrenching to hear these stories. But it's like it's not unusual. Like so here it was a
No.
big corporation I'm talking about, but like I've consulted a few businesses where they've done lead generation, and I'm go like, what happens when they sign up? Yeah, every week I gather them like every Friday or Monday, and then I send them over to sales. And like, so
No,
if
no,
I
no.
sign up on a Monday, then I get called the next Monday, meaning a week later.
Hmm.
Like it's over. Like I'm done.
Yeah.
I can't remember what I did last Monday. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
so you gotta have like if you want to do lead ads, you want to do this, like you gotta have to follow up. Do it with either like just like do it with your tools. Like we use HubSpot here, but also
Mhm.
if you don't have HubSpot, I just set it up for a person the other day. I made a Zapier integration into his Gmail. So every time somebody
Mm.
signed up, it would go through Zapier over to Gmail. They would get an
Mhm.
email. Boom, it worked, and it
Yeah.
works.
And if you are smaller, I mean, we also have a similar setup where we have HubSpot and then Salesforce, and the
Yeah.
sales team look in Salesforce, we look in HubSpot, but we have that integration. But maybe a lot of people don't have those resources. But we had, like what you said, setting up a Zapier connection so that they get
Mhm.
notified. We also have, anytime a lead comes through, a message goes out in a channel on Slack, so that at least the different people who, depending on their region, depending on their area of responsibility, would get a notification that, hey, this lead has come through, act on it. And they have to make a mark, using an icon that they're on it, so that we know someone is looking at it right away.
Exactly. And I think on that note, let's call it a quits for this. Do you have anything to add on the last note, Jen, to this topic?
I think my last note is, this is for me the eternal question, and for a lot of marketers, is how much branding, how much lead generation. I think that study is closest to the answer. It's kind of a 50-50. But then we're not always the budget holders, we're not always the decision makers, and so it's having that data and having that information when you do have to make that justification as to why you need to invest just as much in branding as you do leads. And I'll just leave on a parting note of, when I was at Planday, we did do an experiment where I turned off upper funnel campaigns and upper funnel initiatives, and we immediately saw an impact on the leads at the bottom of the funnel. So there is a correlation, and sometimes just because you can't point at it and say this is what it did, doesn't mean it's not doing something.
Exactly. And I think the best, I think it was Dave Gerhardt from, I think it's Privy now. He said it, like, I think he said it the best way ever. I've always, I'm a, just like you, I'm a data kind of guy. And, but at some point, there comes a point where you go like, if people are talking about this, if you're getting more traffic, direct traffic, more leads, and it's working, and you can just see like the more you do this thing, whatever it is, and if it's branding in this case, and it seems to be working, you're closing customers, then sometimes that's good enough proof for you. Like sometimes that's enough to know that you're doing something right.
It's an Occam's razor, right? Usually the simplest answer is the right one. It's a combination of all of our efforts that's making this happen.
Exactly. Yeah. And on that note, let's call it quits. Thanks for tuning in, and tune in next week where we talk about, I think we're talking about attribution next time. So perfect lead in, actually.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Bye-bye.